of the lunch break live. KDUS AM 1060, the KDUS AM 1060 app, and yes, the KDUS AM 1060 YouTube channel. Hope you are all having a fantastic start to your week, and I will just say this off of the get-go. Today feels like one of those days, everybody. It feels like one of those days where, and I'll show it to the YouTube audience, the show rundown gets thrown out the window. It feels like one of those days where chaos is going to reign supreme, because chaos certainly reigned supreme over the weekend in the NBA, not just with the Suns on the court, but with the rest of the NBA off the court. So, Producer Dylan, we don't have a lot of wiggle room in today's program, so if you would, please.
Time for our top story of the day. It's the Daily Special.
This is a pick-your-poison type of Daily Special. I could have started with Luka Doncic. I could have started with De'Aaron Fox. I could have started with the news today that Myles Garrett has requested a trade out of Cleveland. Don't worry, we're going to touch on every single one of those over the course of the next 2 hours. But how could we not start today's show? The Daily Special, it's the appetizer. It sets the tone. It sets the menu for the rest of the show. And what is our appetizer today? What is going to be the menu today? Phoenix Suns. So let's talk about the weekend that they had, because it was one step forward and then two large steps backwards. A 1-1 weekend that saw this team go into Golden State, win on Friday. And I'll tell you what. If you were somebody that was still a believer in the Phoenix Suns, if you, after what they did against the Clippers last Monday, even after what happened on Wednesday, you were still, I want Jimmy Butler. I want this team to go forward at the trade deadline. I am still a believer. I'm not talking to you about trading Kevin Durant. We'll talk about that today as well. I'm not discussing trading Devin Booker. I'm all in. Matt Ishbia is pushing the chips into the middle. I'm right there with him. If you were still that person last week, Friday's the game that you point to. Friday is the type of performance where you talk amongst your friends, you go into work, and you say, see, that's what this team can do. That's how talented this team is, because they walked into Golden State, and they dominated in the first half, and then they finally answered the question. They finally gave us that second half performance we were looking for. They came out and had a nice little 11-4 run in the third quarter, and that run set the tone for the rest of the game, and they were able to walk away with a comfortable victory, a victory that allowed them to sit guys in the fourth quarter. We talk about finding those pockets of time to give guys rest late in games. They had that on Friday. Friday was the perfect performance for you if you still believe in this team. Friday was perfect. It was everything you needed it to be. And then Saturday, if you are one of the people like myself who was out on this team, that views them as a middle-of-the-road 500 team, they are never going to be anything more than that with the way they are currently constructed. Saturday was everything you needed to prove yourself right. Both camps had a game this weekend that they could point to that said, see, what I'm saying is true. What a disappointing performance on Saturday, especially after all of the good that you had on Friday. You completely erased a solid victory on the road in Golden State. We gave the Golden State game an 8.25 importance. We said the Portland game was a 10 importance. You can't lose those games. With the hardest schedule remaining in the NBA, these are the ones that you have to have. And you gave it away. And you know why you gave it away? Because you couldn't play defense inside. You turned the ball over too much. And you were just a mess. You were a mess in the second half. You were a mess in the first half. You had 7 first-half turnovers on Saturday against Portland. You then had 6 turnovers in the third quarter alone to allow the lead to balloon. There was a moment of the game in the first 6 minutes of the second half where you're thinking to yourself, okay, this team's facing a double-digit deficit. They shouldn't be in this spot. They should be better than this. Durant finished the first quarter scoring like 11 straight points for the team. You thought they were going to make a push in the second. They couldn't. Faced a tall task in the second half, but we saw it the night before in Golden State. This team, could they give us that little push, a small little push to start the third quarter? And you were getting it because Kevin Durant had the great first quarter with 11 straight. You know who had the great third quarter? You know who was lighting it up to start the third quarter? Devin Booker. Dude couldn't miss every time he was coming up the floor in the third quarter on offense. He was in rhythm. Some heat check shots from Devin Booker were falling. The problem was the turnovers and the interior defense. It was too easy for DeAndre Ayton. It was too easy. It was too easy for Kamara inside. It was too easy for those guys in the paint to have easy buckets at the rim. It was too simple. And so every time Booker would hit a great shot on the offensive end, they would just give it back immediately on the defensive side of the floor. Immediately. And so you were never able to gain ground. You had that performance that you needed. Felt like it was gonna have to require Kevin Durant or Devin Booker to take over in the second half if they were going to make this game competitive. And Booker did his job. They just didn't get it done on the defensive side. So how do we look at this week as a whole? Package it all up. Because I think that's the way you have to look at this team now, in week-by-week chunks. So was last week a good week because you got wins over the Clippers and the Warriors and you showed that you belonged with those teams that are your direct competition to try to avoid the play-in tournament or to just stay in the playoff race? Or do we look at this week as another missed chance because you blew the game against Minnesota, because you had a bad loss to Portland on Saturday night? Which one is it? And I think the way you answer that question is the way that you feel this team should conduct itself because, oh, by the way, everybody, the trade deadline's on Thursday. I'm sure you all got a very quick reminder of that with the trades that we saw over the weekend, but the trade deadline's on Thursday. So if you thought that there was more good than bad last week because they were able to beat the Clippers and the Warriors and you're still full steam ahead, I can see you looking at it that way. But if you're somebody who sees the blown lead against Minnesota and sees just a bad loss. It's just a bad loss. Because now that you lost to Portland, you got to make it up somewhere. You beat Golden State. You took 2 out of 3 from a really tough stretch. I think anybody looking at the schedule for the Suns would see Clippers, Timberwolves, Warriors as a you're going to show me something. And they went 2-1 in that stretch. That's good. We should be celebrating that. It should be a happy show feel to start the week. And instead, I've got a bunch of notes from a bad loss to Portland that makes me throw my hands up in the air and say, what is this team? What are they? I think all roads lead back to the same point. This team's around 500. They're going to show you some good. They're also going to show you some bad. And it basically all evens out at the end of the day. Because even when you have the breadcrumbs of what would be a solid week, because they were there. You didn't just beat Golden State on Friday night. You dominated them. You came out knocking down shots in the first half, and you finally did what we've been asking you to do in these spots, is lean on a team to start the third quarter. And you know who did it? It was Ryan Dunn and Nick Richards on both ends of the floor leading the charge. Giving you a nice solid run so that you could break this game open, and it was comfortable. It's what we've been begging for. And you couldn't do it against Brooklyn. You barely could do it against Washington, Utah, all these teams that you couldn't do it against. You finally broke it out against Golden State. And so I'll tell you, I woke up on Saturday after watching the game Friday night. And I'll tell you, I was out and about Friday night. My daughter had a softball clinic. So I was watching the game on the phone. Then I got back in the car. I was listening to the radio broadcast. And you could feel it. They felt some type of way about the way they've been talked about the last couple of weeks. And I don't know if it was because Devin Booker got some shade thrown his way by not being an all-star reserve. Although, have you seen the way he's played this year? Have you seen the way the team's played this year? I'm not surprised. But it felt like there was a little extra in that game last night, or on Friday night, I should say. And you know what? On Friday night, they had that little extra juice. So you wake up on Saturday going, man, they won that game. 2-1 in a tough stretch. Now you get Portland. And you know Portland's been playing better as of late, but if they play the way they played against Golden State, against Portland, man, a 3-1 week, so much fun for us to talk about. Now you can start to be like, yeah, maybe they do need to get Jimmy Butler. Maybe they do need to make a big trade, a big splash here ahead of Thursday. And you can start to see that they've turned a corner. And yet, instead of all of that, I am left looking at you into this camera, speaking to you through this radio microphone, saying, I don't know what this team is. And because we are now 48 games into the season, I think because I don't know, I know. After a while, right? In the NFL, when you draft a quarterback, after 2 or 3 seasons, if you don't know if the dude's a franchise quarterback, guess what? He's not a franchise quarterback. You know. Because you don't know, you know. If a dude's going to be that dude, you see the glimpses. You see the flashes. The potential shines through. For the Phoenix Suns, if this team was going to do something, we would have seen it by now. We saw it. was a brief pocket to start the year where they went 8-1. We've never seen that team again. It's been up and down. It's been one step forward, two steps back. It's been a big win against Golden State that makes you just feel like, yes, finally the sign I've been waiting for to think that this team is back. And then you immediately, you don't even get 24 hours. You don't even get 24 hours to revel in a nice victory against Golden State before you get brought right back to the reality that is the 2024-2025 Phoenix Suns. And that is, they are a middle-of-the-road team that just is, I don't know what it is, but they're just missing something. It's just not working. You shouldn't lose to Portland. Lucky or unlucky for you, you get them again tonight. Trust me, everybody, at some point we'll get to that here today. There's a bunch of rumors right now in the NBA. I'm sure in the 11-plus minutes we've been talking here to open this show, 4 more things have happened. I have no idea. I do not have Twitter open right now. I probably should, but I don't, because it has been a chaotic weekend that, to be honest with you, has gotten more chaotic after Luka and De'Aaron Fox have been traded. Just today, there has been 3 or 4 things that directly relate to the Phoenix Suns that we're going to try to unpack here today. It's why I'm glad this is happening on a Monday. We have all week long to do it. We have between now and Thursday's trade deadline to try to figure this out, to get it all done. But we are glad that you are here today, because buckle up. It is one of those things today where there's a lot going on. A lot is going to continue to go on. And now that some of the bigger moves are off the board here, even one that we didn't think was possible, in Luka Doncic being moved over the weekend, the Suns are going to do something here over the next couple of days. We're going to see something from them. It might not be what we think, it might not be what we want, but they are going to do something over the next couple of days. And truthfully, I think the question that you have to ask yourself today as a Suns fan, was last week a good week, or was it another missed chance? That's it. That's the question. Do you look at what happened last week as a good week because you beat the Clippers and you beat the Warriors and you showed that you could belong against those teams? Or is it a missed chance because of what happened against Portland? Because I'll tell you, the stuff that happened against Portland is stuff we've seen. The turnovers. The interior defense isn't very good. When they face young, athletic teams, they struggle. And I got some bad news for you. A lot of the teams in the Western Conference right now, we're going to touch on this in about 5 minutes from now. You've got a lot of young, athletic teams right now in the NBA. And the Suns struggle with those teams.